A 180-pound pit bull that the entire neighborhood called a monster stood completely still in a dark bedroom at 3:23 a.m., positioned between his sleeping owner and an open window that had been closed when they went to sleep. No barking, no growling, just 180 pounds of silent muscle and a shadow outside the glass that disappeared the moment it realized it had been seen. A 180-pound pit bull broke into his owner's bedroom at exactly 3:23 a.m. and refused to move. No barking, no growling, just 180 pounds of pure muscle standing between a sleeping woman and the darkness behind her. And what Sophia and Carlos discovered when the sun came up will shatter every assumption you've ever had about the most feared breed on Earth. This is Atlas, black as midnight, 180 pounds of scarred muscle and quiet eyes that had seen things no animal should ever see. And this is Sophia and Carlos Torres, newlyweds, 29 years old, living in a small house on the edge of Phoenix with big plans and no idea their lives were about to be permanently, irreversibly changed. 6 months before this story begins, Phoenix police raided an illegal operation on the south side of the city. 31 pit bulls found in stacked metal cages. No water, no food, bodies pressed against cold steel bars for months, each one bearing the roadmap of what had been done to them. Scars layered over scars, ears torn, ribs pushing through skin. Atlas was cage number 7, the largest of them all, the one the officers almost didn't approach. At 180 pounds, even starving, he looked like something carved out of fear itself. But when the first officer knelt down and reached toward the cage, Atlas did something nobody expected. He pressed his massive scarred forehead against the bars and let out a single low whimper. Not aggression, not a warning, a plea. Every dog from that raid went to Maricopa County Rescue Center. Atlas sat in Kennel 14 for 73 days. 41 families walked past him. 41 families kept walking. He was too big, too scarred, too much. The kennel workers stopped putting his adoption photo on the website. What was the point? Then, Sophia Torres walked in on a Thursday afternoon. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She'd gone to drop off donated blankets and took a wrong turn through the back kennels. She almost didn't stop, but something made her slow down at Kennel 14. Atlas was sitting perfectly still, not performing, not jumping, not doing any of the things dogs do when they desperately want attention. He just looked at her, steady, patient, like he'd been waiting specifically for her. Carlos is going to say no, she told herself. She called Carlos from the parking lot. Carlos said absolutely not. She drove home, ate dinner, couldn't sleep, drove back the next morning and signed the adoption papers before Carlos woke up. The first week was not a movie montage. Atlas didn't know how to walk on hardwood floors, his paws kept sliding from under him, and he'd freeze, too proud to ask for help, too uncertain to move. He refused to eat unless Sophia sat on the kitchen floor beside him. He knocked over the coat rack 4 times in 2 days, not out of energy, but because he simply had no spatial awareness for how large his own body was. A body that had spent most of its life pressed against metal bars didn't know how much space it occupied in the world. Carlos came home from work Tuesday evening to find Sophia on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, Atlas's 180-pound body folded into her lap like he was a 10-pound puppy. "He's afraid of thunderstorms," Sophia said, not looking up. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. "He just needed a lap," she added. Carlos stood there for a long moment, then he sat down on the floor too. By the end of the first month, they had a routine. Atlas slept on a large orthopedic bed in the corner of the bedroom. Every morning at 6:10 a.m., he would stand up, shake his entire body once like he was resetting himself, walk to Carlos's side of the bed, and breathe on him. Not bark, not whine, just breathe. Warm, slow, deliberate breath directly onto Carlos's face until he opened his eyes. It was deeply unsettling and completely effective. Sophia found it hilarious. Carlos did not. The neighbors, however, found nothing about Atlas amusing. Mrs. Patterson across the street crossed to the other side every time Sophia walked him. Mr. Henderson filed a formal complaint with the HOA. Twice, someone left a note under their windshield wiper that read, "That animal is a weapon. Get it out of our neighborhood." Sophia kept the note, not out of anger, but out of the stubborn, quiet belief that Atlas would prove every word of it wrong. She had no idea how right she was, or what form that proof would take. I see you're still here but haven't subscribed yet. Honestly, that stings a little. Hit subscribe now. What's coming next will change how you see everything. Three months after bringing Atlas home, Sophia woke up at 3:23 a.m. to the feeling of something heavy pressing against the side of the bed. She assumed it was Atlas climbing in again. He's learned that if he pressed his forehead against the mattress frame and pushed slowly, the whole bed shifted just enough to wake her up. It was his version of knocking. But this time, he wasn't pushing the bed. He was standing between the bed and the window, completely still, every muscle locked, his body positioned like a living wall between Sophia and the far side of the room. No growling, no barking, just stillness. The kind of stillness that is louder than any sound. Sophia sat up. The room was dark, but she could see the shape of Atlas, rigid and enormous, facing the window. She followed his gaze. The window was open 2 inches. It had been closed when they went to sleep. Carlos was already awake on the other side. He'd felt it too, that shift in the room, that change in the air that happens when something is wrong and your body registers it before your brain catches up. Neither of them moved. Atlas didn't move either. They stayed like that for 4 minutes that felt like 40. Then headlights from a passing car swept across the room, and for a single second they saw it, a shadow at the window, gone before they could process it, gone the way things go when they realized they've been seen. Carlos called the police. Officers arrived 11 minutes later. They found fresh marks on the exterior window frame. They found a single shoe print in the flower bed below. They found 2 streets over a van that matched the description of one connected to a string of home break-ins across the east side of Phoenix. 8 houses in 6 weeks. Every one of them had been entered through an unlocked or partially open window. Every one of them had been empty of people, or the people inside had slept through it. The officer who took their statement looked at Atlas, still stationed by the window, still watching, and said, "Your dog didn't bark?" "No," Carlos said. The officer wrote something in his notebook. "Smart animal. Barking would have spooked the guy into running before we could track the van. Staying quiet kept him close long enough for a neighbor to call in a plate." He paused. "You're lucky." Carlos looked at Atlas. Atlas looked back at Carlos with those steady, patient eyes. "Yeah," Carlos said quietly, "we are." The neighborhood found out within 48 hours. Mrs. Patterson appeared at their door with a casserole, the universal language of people who have realized they were wrong about something and can't quite find the words. Mr. Henderson didn't file any more HOA complaints. The note under the windshield was never mentioned again by anyone. And Atlas? Atlas went back to his morning routine. Wake up Carlos with warm, deliberate breath at 6:10 a.m., slide across the hardwood floors with no dignity whatsoever on the way to the kitchen, refuse to eat until Sophia sat beside him on the floor, occupy 3/4 of the couch without apology, exactly who he had always been. The same 180 pounds the shelter had written off after 73 days. The same scarred, enormous animal that 41 families had decided was too much. The same dog the neighborhood had called a weapon, a monster, a threat. He hadn't changed. Their ability to see him had. Some stories are too important to keep to yourself. If Atlas changed how you see something today, this video deserves to be heard by someone else who needs it. Today, Atlas is 3 years old. He still breathes on Carlos every morning at exactly 6:10 a.m. He still needs Sophia on the floor beside him to eat. He has claimed the entire couch and shown no remorse. Sophia and Carlos have stopped trying to reclaim it. The scar across his left ear, the one that curves from the tip all the way to the base, they used to wonder about it. They've stopped wondering. It doesn't matter anymore where it came from. What matters is where he is now, in a house that is warmer and louder and more alive because he is in it, with two people who almost walked past Kennel 14, who almost let 41 other families define what Atlas was worth. There are 3.3 million dogs sitting in American shelters right now. A third of them are pit bulls. Most of them will never be seen the way Atlas was seen on a Thursday afternoon by a woman who took a wrong turn. If you're thinking about bringing a dog into your life, go to a shelter first. Talk to the workers. Ask about the ones who've been there the longest, the ones the website stopped featuring, the ones the families kept walking past. Sometimes the ones the world has given up on are exactly who you needed all along. Because Sophia didn't save Atlas. On a quiet night in Phoenix at 3:23 a.m., standing between her and a shadow at the window, Atlas saved her. Is this love, or is it something older than love, something bred into them before we ever gave it a name? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it.